All right, coming to you again from the sidelines of Forward cloudsec, like we did last year. I am the host of Modern Cyber, as always, Jeremy, and I am really excited to be coming to you today with two guests, not one, but two. You're getting two for the price of one on today's episode, which, by the way, the price is always free, so you shouldn't be complaining about that. But we are delighted we get an opportunity to sit down with some of the speakers from this year's event, and we're going to talk to them about their research, about their lessons learned, about what's in their talks, and what are the messages they want to share with the audience. You're getting a chance to get some of this from us, even if you weren't able to attend the conference or view the live stream. By the way, all the talks from Forward cloudsec are recorded, so you should go check them out. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Kyler and Sai, and I will let them introduce themselves. Say a little bit about yourself, Kyler, and then Sai, and then we'll take the conversation from there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us, and hello, world. I'm Kyler Middleton. I'm our one and only so far principal internal AI developer. We're both employed at a company called Veradigm in the United States that does healthcare focused stuff, and I am very excited to talk about it.
Awesome.
Hi everyone. I'm Sai. I'm a lead architect with the Veradigm Cloud Platform team, focusing on Azure and Azure-based technologies.
Azure and Azure-based technologies. Awesome. So for the audience, tell us a little bit about what your talk is about. Because I know you two are co-presenting, and it sounds like you've co-presented a number of times in the past as colleagues. So what's your talk this year here at Forward cloudsec? What's it about? What also kind of inspired it?
Sure. So we're focusing on the platform engineering precepts that are going to be very useful as AI starts to creep its way in, as I imagine it has for like almost every platform engineering team.
Yeah.
We have started to see folks implement AI without a lot of good underpinnings and rules and governance, and so it's really hit or miss. For this was very well done because the engineer cared a lot.
Right.
This sends a lot of our private data to a public AI endpoint, and they implemented a ChatGPT API token, and we have to say, please turn that off.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. So it's really all across the board, and it's coming for all of our applications.
Yes. So, I mean, it's really inspired by real world kind of pain points that you guys are experiencing day to day within the organization.
Yeah. Sai is the lead of the platform team, so he's sort of providing the governance, and I'm coming from the opposite perspective, where I'm the troublemaker. I'm the AI developer, so I'm doing things sometimes wrong, sometimes to just get it working and not as secure, and then Sai comes in and secures secure things that I make. So it's a good partnership. We work well together in that way.
Well, it's funny because what you just described is very much what I think happens a lot of times in the real world, and is especially something that I'm seeing around AI today, which, by the way, for me, this is also reminiscent of like 10 years ago in the cloud, where, 10 years ago it was, we've got these developers doing these things in the cloud and the security team doesn't know about it and the governance team doesn't know about it. And it sounds like we're really playing out that same story again when it comes to AI. I'm seeing a lot of nodding, and it's kind of this like constant, like, security and governance running to keep up with the developers, and developers are like wanting to play with the shiny new cool tools. So I'm curious, maybe Sai, for you, a question for you is like, as you go chasing these developers, so to speak, not literally, but kind of figuratively, like what are the number one or two kind of mistakes that you're seeing from them?
So I think from a platform point of view, two major issues I've seen majorly is that, one is data access patterns, right, especially when you're accessing super sensitive, highly protected compliance data.
I mean, that's all your data, right? As a healthcare organization. Yeah.
And also the second thing is, like Kyla mentioned, like trying to use some unvetted models on the internet, from Hugging Face or just downloading, maybe DeepSeek or something like that, which we haven't fully validated, and if it works for the organization or not. That's also another big kind of a major concern. And a lot of the tools don't have built-in controls to block stuff. You mostly build over on top of the tool that you're using. And the last thing, at least from an Azure implementation I've seen a lot, is if you don't select the correct values, your data could be shipped off to a different geography to process because of cheaper compute available at that point of time there. So those things are something that really worries me when someone's like, hey, I'm just going to do some AI stuff on Azure or yield this. And it's like, yeah, you can, but you have to take care of all of these things. And a lot of the times developers, is difficult for them to keep track because they're trying to achieve a certain goal. So I think as platform architects, it's left to us to build those guidelines into the platform so that they don't have the option to then select those unsecure features. Very similar to like 10 years ago, what PaaS service, like, hey, this super cool SQL PaaS database, and you have to secure it, like the same exact like you mentioned.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think you can't stop them. You have to find the right way to kind of work with them and tell them like, hey, look, from a governance, policy, compliance, risk, whatever perspective, these are the things that we have tested, we have validated, we know are okay for the organization, whether it is, for instance, like compliance, let's say for you guys as a healthcare organization, I'm sure there are rules around, data cannot leave the US, right? Yeah. So that's got to be a real concern for you, right? But once you get those rules out there, I'm kind of curious from the perspective of like, okay, now we've put these rules in place. What's next? Like, do you just communicate those rules, or do you then put in technical controls to make sure that people can't color outside the lines?
From a platform, I think we take it to steps. I look so, and one is Kyla. She actually runs like a brown bag where we kind of do trainings, and we tell everyone like, hey, these are the do's and don'ts. This is what you're supposed to, like. This is what you could do, and stuff like that, right? Yep. But then not everyone remembers all of them, and that's when the technical controls come into picture, and that's I think where other AWS SCPs or Azure policies. Those are like guardrails that we can push in and just outright deny stuff, or give them a warning like, hey, this is not secure. If you still want to do this, maybe talk to a security team and they can work a way around it. But then same things are just not going to happen. Let's say that,
right.
And just generally the setting technical rules or even setting organizational rules that say don't do this, it's not allowed, just don't work. As much as we want them to work, and paper they look great, people will. Still, they have goals to achieve. They have things they need to do. So as much as we can, we're setting the rules, the right rules, but we're also creating paved paths for the right way to do it. That's a lot of technical work and a lot of training, and they have to go hand in hand or people won't use the things that you have built.
Yeah, that phrase that you just used there, paved path, is one that I hear come up a few, here and there when it comes in particular to kind of guiding developers towards like what is the quote unquote right way to do something. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you've learned over the years as far as like how to work with developers, engage developers, communicate with them about what is the paved path and what is acceptable?
Totally. The bottom line is you have to make it easier to follow the rules than to break the rules. You can make it any way that you want, but just having a bigger stick that says we're going to punish you later just does not work. You have to say this is easier, maybe in the short run, maybe in the long run, that if you do it our way, then we'll implement it. We won't question you as much. We won't have to change as much of your architecture later.
Okay.
One of our fun examples was we have a rule in the company that you're not allowed to use ChatGPT, public AI. You're the product if it's free. And absolutely no one was listening. Okay. So what we decided to do was build an internal AI bot that they could use, and we put it right in Slack and right in Teams. We made it easier and also more secure. And in that way, that was just a really great success. That project worked really well because it was easier and it did more for them. As much as you can, build something better. That's also.
But I think a lot of security teams would hear that and say like, okay, so I need to make it easier to do the right thing than to do the wrong thing. In so many organizations, I would say that reinforcement mechanism is much more oriented around stopping the wrong thing than it is around doing the right thing. And so, the developer who's like, hey, I'm just going to go build this thing, they're just going to get like deny policies kicking in. And then, until they get the accept, and you can sit there and say like, well, yeah, like you got the accept. So just do it that way. Yep. That's the right thing. Right. But like, where does that break, or why does that not work as an approach?
That's a good question.
I don't know. I think my thought process would be is that, seeing a lot of denies actually starts to feel like, okay, you're closing all the doors for me for it to work.
Yeah.
And the only one option that you give doesn't maybe really you kind of serve the use case.
Right. Okay.
And that's something that we've seen at times happen where we block a certain action from being performed. Is like, but I just need this. Then I can do this, and then I don't have to do 10 more steps to get But then, like maybe for a POC, I let you bend it and just see if it works for you. But then productionalize this use case, we have to go through these hops and do the secure way.
Yeah.
Another thing I've actually felt more effective is that if you kind of communicate the impact of what is happening, like, okay, we can allow this to happen, but just understand the impact of allowing this is going to be so much more, kind of security breach or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That kind of sometimes sinks in very deep, and then like, okay, so so there is a reasoning why we tell not to do some stuff.
Yeah.
When governance teams comes to us and say, hey, can you please block this, something like that? There's a reasoning why that happens. And many times the context behind why that's happening is missed. And when we communicate that, we see a lot more success patterns for secure development practices.
Yeah.
Anything on that?
Yeah, I think part of this is how you structure your information security team internally. Are you the bad guys that say no all the time? Or are you the good guys that are able to create things that are better? And, you have to be both, fortunately, because you do have to say no sometimes, but as much as we can, I try to help steering towards the, like, we built a thing, it's better. I'm your friend.
Yeah. Sai, earlier you mentioned that there were kind of like three things that you see popping up, right? So one is not using the approved models. Two is maybe not using the right regions for those models, so a data sovereignty kind of issue. And then three is the data that's being used and whether that data is allowed to be used, right?
Also access path. Yeah.
Okay. And so like along those notes, along those lines, I'm curious because I think a lot of organizations are going through this pain point right now. And like, not a shameless plug for Firetail, but this is something that we help organizations discover is like what's going on. But I'm really curious from your perspective, like, how did you figure out that this was what you guys were facing?
I think after the DeepSeek thing happened, that's when we were like, okay, we need to stop. I don't think until then there were really good ways to control it.
Okay.
And then we got a request saying that, okay, we have to now prevent developers from using DeepSeek for sensitive data and basically for anything else within the organization.
And that was primarily when you said the DeepSeek thing happened, you're just be like the release of DeepSeek and then all the controversy around like, hey, it's sending your data to China and all this. Okay.
Yeah. And then kind of sort of our conversation is like, so today we have DeepSeek, tomorrow we could have something else, and we could have so many more. And how do we start to secure and maybe have like an allow list of all the models that exist in our company and things like that. So that's where the conversation started off from. And then that's when we started to see that there's, at least on Azure, there's policies that we could actually implement to ask certain marketplace providers or also registries to use.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask about that because Azure, of the three cloud providers, Azure is the one that I know the worst or the least about, right? I'm more familiar with AWS and Google. On that, my understanding of Azure is that you kind of have like two main AI services within Azure. You have the Azure AI service, and then you have the Azure OpenAI service, which is kind of like a licensing of ChatGPT and related technologies and models coming from OpenAI, right? Within the Azure AI service, is it also kind of a marketplace of different AI providers? Okay.
The Azure AI service, you also could use like the ChatGPT and the OpenAI models. And you also can get any other models from Meta or NVIDIA, things like that as well.
Cohere and A21 and all the other providers.
All of them are being listed there. And you also could use Azure ML Workspace to their own AIs and fine tune and stuff like that. Models, I mean. And then then you have the OpenAI, which is also the very similar, just OpenAI stuff that's available there. And all of these, the policies are applying. We can actually apply policies, all of these saying you only can get a certain version.
Right. This provider, this model, this region, this version of the model, etc. Okay. Have you found, and I think like basically all the cloud providers work that way, and you can put in place policies around that for the organization in any of the cloud providers. But right now it's a little bit the Wild West, I think, in most organizations as far as like, they don't have a known policy for like, oh, this is the model provider version region that we want to be using. And two, I just think there's like so much experimentation going on right now, right? That like so many organizations are just moving really, really quickly. And, today I've got this chatbot use case that I want to build. And tomorrow it's a recommendation engine. And next week it's a business intelligence or data analysis. So how have you thought about that in terms of, let's say, like allowing a use case of experimentation where it might be a lot of different models and a lot of different requests? Did you think about like data anonymization, or did you think about, let's say, like limiting access to accounts in terms of making sure that there's no external access in certain experimentation use cases, or how have you approached that?
So for the platform that I manage, it's a combination of both.
Okay.
We have accounts that dev teams have access to, like dummy data, could use against models and test it out. But again, by default, everything is blocked. If they have something, then they reach out to us. We can vet what they're trying to do, get security involved, get the compliance teams involved, get everyone involved, and let's be on the same page as what's happening and make it a time-bound access. And if it really works for the use case, then we can start to see what mitigation controls we can implement to make it maybe productionalized or something like that. But if it doesn't work out, then we just scrap it like that.
Yeah, we have pretty strong controls around our data, as you would imagine. So what we're trying to do is enable folks to have like sort of sandboxy access to AI. Do whatever you feel, because it doesn't have access to data. But when you want to cross that threshold and read the data into the vector database or copy it or clone it or modify it or provide it, then you have to interface with the platform team and with information security and things like that. So really it is this data engineering in a funny hat. That's literally one of our slides from our talk.
Data engineering in a funny hat. I love it. And so like along those lines of experimentation, because I imagine this is a lot more in your camp with the platform engineering teams that are building new products and whatnot. Is what I described kind of an accurate picture where you're going through like different use cases, maybe different models, different providers, different testing?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Okay.
I am trying to pick which things to do next, and I have, I think, 15 people offering me 25 different projects. So I have no idea what to work on next. And we're trying to figure out a system of how do we choose what to do? Yeah. There's this huge FOMO. I think it's based FOMO at companies that if we pick the wrong things, we will be outcompeted. Yeah. So you need to choose, and we need to implement, and we need to secure today. Yeah. And that's really scary. People can make some very poor choices in that kind of high pressure environment. So we have to systematize it and put our heads together and choose which things can make the greatest impact with the least amount of risk.
Yeah.
AI is very good at summarization. It's very bad at novel thinking. Yeah. We have to be very careful that it doesn't actually make healthcare choices, but maybe it just supplements our providers. So there's a lot there to be concerned about, no matter your industry.
Yeah. This FOMO point that you raised, I really think is super relevant to think about right now. And it really is this kind of like, not so much your team, but maybe like more your company at the executive level. There's this fear that like, okay, if we don't get there, our competitors are going to get there. And if they get there better, faster, cheaper, they can undercut us on price, or they can outcompete us on service offering, or whatever that thing might be. And I just see this across like so many industries right now where, like you have to use AI, right?
Yeah.
And it just is it's again a little bit like cloud was 10 years ago, where a lot of organizations were like, we're going to get ahead because we're going to be more scalable, or we can experiment more quickly, and so on. So I'm curious, you guys have this partnership between platform engineering and governance. Obviously, it's been working for a number of years now, which is, by the way, awesome. And I would say, in my observation, not super common. Like not super common that you do have a good partnership between the two organizations. One of the things, I can't remember which of you said it earlier, but like this department of no, I think is much more the common thread in many organizations, where there's a lot of friction between those teams. I'd love if you could share from your perspective some of the things that you've learned in working with each other. Obviously, it seems like you two have a good, professional working relationship at one-on-one, which is great. But organizationally, how did you guys get to this point with your teams and with kind of within the broader organization?
Totally. I think our dynamic personally is really fun, and it has been very enriching for me, where Sai's perspective of platform engineering is to integrate with all these teams, see how they're doing it, and kind of bring home the collective knowledge. I find that fascinating. But he'll generally kind of collect these problem sets that we don't have solved. No one's done a good job solving this yet. And I try to pluck some of those out and go and solve them and then bring them back. And so platform engineering, in my head, it's the hub of the wheel. You should have a finger in every pie and be integrating with all these teams. And then you do need those problem solvers that are, solving those intrinsic, intractable problems. Yeah, that's my perspective. Is that?
And I think one of the organizational objectives that we have, other than design principles and stuff, is to ensure that developers don't have any velocity breakers.
Yeah.
So saying no to them upfront might be a good thing from security. I totally understand that, but also it will be a kind of velocity killer for them.
For sure.
So understanding their use case, trying to work with them to see how we can mitigate any potential problems, I think has actually worked really well for us.
Yeah.
It's very easy to just say no, right? And the ISA stop, and then they'll just say, okay, I can't do this, I'll go a different way, and we start to incur a lot of tech debt and stuff like that. So I think asking those questions and then understanding the use cases and then helping them with the whole process has really been helpful for us as a team as well. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, in the last couple of minutes that we have here, I'm just curious, is there anything else from your talk that you would think is like, high value, high importance points that we haven't hit on in today's conversation that you'd like to share with the audience? Otherwise, we'll definitely get a link. I think this will probably go up before the talk is live on YouTube. So we'll definitely link back to that talk. But anything else that you'd want to share with the audience, just kind of in wrapping up today's conversation?
Perfect. One of the things that I love about Azure that I wish AWS had caught up with, we're going to talk about this more in the talk, is when you deploy an AI model into Azure, you pick a guardrail and it's just intrinsically packaged. If you want to use it, you have to use a deployment that has a guardrail. With AWS Bedrock serverless models, that's not true. It's part of the API call.
Yeah, the guardrail is kind of decoupled from the model itself.
Though, if you turn off security, you can. It shouldn't be something users are able to do.
Interesting.
There's no config rule or resource policy you can set that will control that, to my knowledge, because it's not a resource. So there are no resource policies. That's pretty concerning. So it's just going to be very cautious about with Bedrock. I'm a big fan. I've built a lot of things on it, but there are some weak points there in terms of auditability and securability to watch out for.
Interesting. I did not know that about Azure. Thank you for sharing.
I didn't know that as well. I don't hate that stuff. No, I step on. Yeah, I think the three which I spoke about earlier was the three key takeaways that we'll talk about. It'll sound very simple and easy, and it's like very very obvious, like how this should be done. But again, a lot of the platform defaults don't enforce them. Primarily trying to keep cost low. All the other options you select them make it very expensive to run models or do anything else. So I think that's the big call that I actually want to make, is like they're available, but it's not your defaults. And you have to really pay attention to like ensure that you select the correct things. And then have the right access set up.
This is also such a valid point. I think like right now, we talked about, hey, like there's this FOMO of companies, and if you don't adopt AI, your competitor is going to, and they're going to outcompete you. But the same is true on the cloud provider side, right? They're in this race, this massive arms race, like billions of dollars being spent on AI services. And to that point, I would say that the priorities for the cloud providers, at least my opinion, and based on what I've observed, is making it easy for you to use AI. Not necessarily making it easy for you to secure AI adoption, right? And so secure defaults aren't there. And, let's say putting good rules around data access and data access policies, like they're not there by default, just as you were saying.
Yeah, it's all by default, and you have to actually dig through a lot of documentation to understand what exactly that option means. Like the SKU global doesn't really tell you that, hey, this is going to go anywhere. It feels like the option feels so different from what actually is going to happen. And that only you understand once you start to dig through documentation and reread, and then eventually, this is not right option, and maybe they should do standard or something else in these. That's the risk which I'm at times very worried about. So sadly, Azure, at least they have policies to just block it, which we did. But on AWS.
It's just more difficult to block specific models when they don't have a resource. It's just difficult to secure it. And I hope AWS catches up there. I agree they've prioritized making it easy to move quickly. But unfortunately, you can sometimes break stuff.
Absolutely. Well, Kyler and Sai, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the sidelines. It's been great to, A, step away for a minute here and catch our breaths, but B, just get a chance to talk about this. This is such a relevant problem for organizations right now, as everybody is in this kind of FOMO race to adopt AI and make the most of it. So your lessons learned, I think, are really valuable lessons learned for the audience. We will have links to the talk from Forward CloudSec. We'll also have links to Kyler and Sai, anything that they want to share. We'll get those into this show notes. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.